You want to go ahead and take this off now, and you do it by opening the hose bib and then twisting the little nut that's right here at the base. Well, that's not good. Welcome to another episode of Ask Dad. Today I will be going over fixing a dripping hose bib. So if you have a hose bib that drips, I was going to show you how to repair it. And there are a couple of simple or easy ways to do it. It may require you taking a picture of your hose bib though, because there are rubber washers, and I'll go through that in a sec, that go in each hose bib, that when you crank the handle down, it actually seals the water from coming out. So just show you a couple different types of hose bibs. And this is true, I live in the Southwest, so we don't have frost-free hose bibs, but if you had a frost-free hose bib, you technically take out the stem, just like we are going to do on the hose bibs here in the Southwest, where we don't need, we don't get the freezing cold and need the frost-free hose bibs. There are a few type of valves to turn the water off so that you can work on hose bibs. And I happen to have what's called a ball valve, very reliable. Now there's also gate valves and other types of ways to shut off water, but if you have an old style gate valve, I really avoid ever touching those. So this just happens to be one style that I have at my home. I do want to give a quick disclaimer on gate valves, and I'm going to show a couple of pictures of kind of old rusted ones that I would not touch, and then also show you a new one and how they work and technically why they break. But new gate valves or ones that you've been opening and closing will work great, but if it hasn't been touched for quite a few years and is rusted, personally I'm not going to touch that gate valve, because I've closed a few that never opened again, and then our house is without water until we can change out the main shutoff to our house. And so I just wanted to share that, but I'm going to show some pictures. So let's look at those pictures and how a gate valve works, and then we'll get into the repair. You can see this is a gate valve, and so it just threads down, and it's like a big gate closing, kind of coming in that way. And when these are old and crudted, that stem will break, and when you go to open it back up, it won't open. The first thing you want to do before you work on almost any plumbing fixture, but today specifically on hose bibs, is you want to make sure you turn your water off to your house. So my house happens to have what we'll call a ball valve, which is just a quarter turn, and I can shut the water off. Now that I have the water off, I'm going to go ahead and pull off the top part of my hose bib. And so first thing is you just want to loosen this, and no water is going through my hose because I have it turned off. And then you'll see there's a little wrench part right here, and I always like to have a pair of pliers, because if you start to crank on this and the pipe starts to move, that's pretty dangerous. You just never want to have the pipe inside the wall bend or move or twist. So we're going to go ahead and grab this, and I can kind of hold the hose with the other hand and don't need my wrench, and you'll see water's kind of bubbling out. And because everything's still kind of under pressure, but you'll see this little rubber washer right here is what they just get really hard and crack. But we're going to go ahead and take this off and replace little rubber seat. So this is a Phillips head, and I just have my universal screwdriver. Alright, so this has happened to me before. So sometimes, and I'm kind of glad so you can see it, this screw sometimes breaks. And so when you go to the hardware store to get a washer, you may want to get a kit that includes a new screw. So when this happens, you got to figure out a way to get that screw out. And I've learned by just this is a hacksaw blade. I put a little piece of tape on it so I can grab it, and you just want to saw back and forth until you can get a flat screwdriver on there. So let me get this part done and I'll show you. So, and it isn't hard, just that screw is so old that it just broke on me, and so I like to go a little bit deep so that my screwdriver won't break off a chunk. And yeah, it is kind of a pain, and it makes the job like a bigger job. But if you can see, I've clearly cut a line there, and I'm going to go just a little deeper. So the screw is brass, so it's a soft metal. This is not hard to do, the cut I'm doing, and you can see the shiny brass in there. I'm going to grab my screwdriver and use my small tip and put it in here and see if we can get the screw out. And so now the screw is coming out. So that's perfect. And I do not recommend using the screw again. I actually have another screw, so we're going to kind of toss this screw, and now we're going to dig out this part here. And so this is what you're replacing. And this is just old and very hard. It's not pliable like rubber anymore. And I'm going to grab a new one. So it is somewhat critical that when you, like I was recommending before, take a picture of your hose bib, go to your hardware store. And so I have a new rubber washer. And then I actually have a spare stainless steel screw that I can put in. And so with that, that's all I need to do. Just tighten this down, and I may have over tightened it a little bit even. This isn't tightening metal on metal, you're just pushing that rubber thing in. And then when you thread this down, because it threads on here, that's what hits inside the hose bib. So when the water's turned onto your house, water doesn't flow out through the hose. Now I wanted to point out that right here I have this little washer, and it's plastic, and it's what's going to help the water from not leaking out through there. So if you pull yours off and that's all broken and or it's not there, then you're going to have to just get some Teflon tape and put it on. So I know it sounds like a big job, but you'll see that it's very easy, and a little package of these are probably just under $5, so really inexpensive. But I have my little washer here, so I'm just going to throw it back on. So first step is just get this, and you can thread it in by your hand. There mine goes. And again, you never want to over tighten it, and if you feel like you need to tighten it more, like I can kind of grab it, you never want to crank on it, because it'll bend right here where the copper pipe goes into your house, and you will have a lot bigger problem and another leak. And so and then once that's on, because this was already up, if you remember I loosened it, now I can put this down and tighten it, and I'm going to go turn the water on and see if this thing leaks. Let's turn our water back on, and I like to just kind of do it really slow. You hear it, and there we go. If I slowly open it, we have water pressure, but when I shut it, I can feel that there's now some pliability with that new rubber washer in there, and this hose is no longer going to leak on us. Now I did want to point out another type of leak, and it has to do with this bonnet nut. And so when my hose is on, you'll see water's dripping up here on the top, and if I hold my finger here, you can kind of see it dripping down, or you see it dripping on the hose. And so this is an easy fix. It just requires a wrench or a little pair of pliers, and you just grab this little bonnet nut, and I do it while this is open, and I just do like maybe like I wouldn't do more than that, like 1/8 of a turn. You can tighten this too much and split it, and then if you tighten it too much, then this is really hard to open and turn, and I kind of feel like it's still dripping a little bit, so I'm going to crank it just a little harder. And now I can tell that this is a lot harder to turn now. And so when you tighten this bonnet nut down, it actually seals this stem, and now I don't see any water dripping down. And so those are the two common places that they leak, is you replace the rubber washer, or you just barely tighten that bonnet down, but don't over tighten it. And again, biggest precaution is never do anything that causes this. You can see how much this wiggles already, but you would hate to cause a secondary leak inside the wall, because then we're ripping stucco out or drywall on the inside, or we're causing a leak. So go ahead and turn this hose bib off. So this is a frost-free hose bib that I referenced earlier. And so this will go back into the wall of your home if you live in cold country. And I just wanted to kind of show the same techniques for like a standard hose bib for here. So I got my big pair of pliers and I gripped this, and then I used my crescent wrench to take off this nut. And since I already loosened it, I can go ahead and pull this out. And then you'll pull it out, and you'll see that it technically has that same little rubber washer and a little screw. And so if you have this style of hose bib, which we call a frost-free hose bib, and when you shut it all the way off, if water is dripping out of here, it's the same technique as on the regular little hose bib that I showed. And you would then just thread this back together, and again, always use a wrench, because you never want to start loosening that, because if you unthread this in your wall, you're going to have a bigger leak in your wall. And so always hold this tight, and then you can use your wrench on that little nut. Well, thanks for watching another edition of Ask Dad. And that is how you repair a hose bib. Now, if you think this job is a little bit maybe bigger than you want to do, sometimes it's just easy or easier replacing the hose bib. So I have another video on how to replace a hose bib, so you can jump and watch it, and it has some of the exact same stuff with how to turn the water off and things like that. If you at all feel uncomfortable in doing this, please contact a plumbing contractor or handyman that you trust. The last thing you'd want to do is cause a problem at your home where your water has to be shut off longer because you don't have the proper repair kit or the proper hose bib. And so I've tried to take some measurements and show you some things, but the best thing is take a picture of the hose bib, go down to your local hardware store, and they have people there that will help you. And you might have to buy a package of those little rubber washers that's just a mix of them, because they may not know what size it is. But you never want to, well, I never want to start working on plumbing and then I got to leave the water off and run down to the store, because then my wife and my family aren't super happy that the water's turned off, you can't use the toilet, can't wash your hands, things like that. But if you have any questions, post them in the comments below. I'll do my best to answer them with a video. And thanks again for watching another episode of Ask Dad.